Well, I'm excited. We are talking about hard talks this morning. Who just loves having difficult conversations? Woo! All right. I'm staying away from all of you after this. All right. But the rest of us, this is for you. Actually, this is for everybody. Even if, however much you like or dislike tough conversations, this is what we're talking about. But let's be honest. Most of us don't like difficult conversations. That's why they're called difficult conversations, right? They suck. They're uncomfortable. They are awkward. And they make us feel like my friend Michael Scott here. Maybe.
This is the worst.
That's why this is called Hard Talks this morning, with the subtitle, This is the Worst. Now, according to a workplace resource called Bravely, they did a study. They found that in the workplace environment, 70% of employees across the nation are avoiding difficult conversations with their boss, colleagues, and their direct reports. 70%. Now, they did the math based on, hours, unproductive hours because of these conversations. Like when you're avoiding something, you're not very productive with your time. And then they, the math of like average salary and all that stuff. And they found that for every single difficult conversation that was avoided was costing the company $7,500 and 7 full work days. And that's just per conversation, not per person, per conversation. Most people are avoiding more than one conversation at a time. So it's costing businesses, cumulatively billions of dollars around the U.S. and countless work times. And I thought it was interesting. They broke down the kinds of things people did to avoid these conversations. They found that 50% would just avoid the person at all costs. Like, not gonna look at you, I'm not gonna talk to you. If you take the elevator, I'm taking the stairs, right? If you take this hallway, I'm taking this other hallway, which is very difficult if you work in close proximity with the person, right? Now, I'm sure some of these people still found a way, But they found that 37%, they would talk to the person, but they would dance around the awkward topic and just never bring it up. Now, I found these last two very fascinating. They found that 37% considered quitting their job. And just, this is too difficult. I don't want to have this conversation. Maybe I can find a different job. And they found that 11% did quit their job, which is fascinating. We don't like having difficult conversations, do we? We don't like having difficult conversations. And I found that, our cumulative ability to have difficult conversations was about as high as another friend of mine here.
Hey, guys. Oh, big gulp, son. All right. Well, see you later.
Such skill. Such nuance, such an ability to dig into difficult topics, right? Oh, big gulps, huh? Well, see you later. So just think about this for a second. Think about your own life. Think about the situations you find yourself in, your family, your job, school, any situation, maybe a club that you're in or something, maybe the church here. What are the difficult conversations that you are avoiding? What are the conversations you're avoiding? I'm willing to bet most of us have maybe at least one that we're avoiding. Maybe it's a family member. Maybe it's a friend here at church. God forbid. Hey, it happens, right? Maybe it's someone at your school or your job. Maybe there's a friend of yours that is, maybe it's not a conflict, but someone is making terrible decisions. They're destroying their lives, but you're too afraid to breach the awkward topic, so you just watch from a distance. Right? Maybe there's a blind spot someone else has, and it's wreaking havoc on you, but you're just like, you know what? I will suck it up. I will be the sacrificial lamb here and just not say anything. Right? Anybody relate to that? Yeah, it's painful. It is. Okay, so I thought, rather than just giving you a normal sermon, I thought I would just show you. So raise your hand if you have beef with somebody, and we'll just work it out on stage right now. Anybody? Yeah? All right. I'm just kidding. We won't do that. Some of y'all were about to leave. You're just like, I'm out of here. Oh man, here's my main idea. Here's my main idea that I want to flesh out. Hard talks are an opportunity for life and flourishing. Hard talks are an opportunity for life and flourishing. Now, I know most of you don't believe me. You're like, that is not true. Hard talks are an opportunity for chaos, death, and destruction, and that's why I avoid them. But follow me here, because I hope not only to change your mind, but give you maybe the right motivation for how to approach these the way that I think God is inviting us to, okay? Y'all uncomfortable yet? Okay, that's all right. You're in the right place. That's what we're doing. All right, well, let's jump into the scriptures. If you have your Bible, you can open up 2 Kings chapter 5. Here's the situation here. The nation of Israel has a neighboring nation to the northeast called Aram. And Aram and Israel are constantly fighting each other, at war with each other. They're kind of like bitter cousins, just constantly at war. And this is one of the rare periods of peace between a bunch of wars and skirmishes and stuff. They find themselves kind of in a calm situation. And one of the leaders in the nation of Aram, the enemy nation, finds himself in a rough situation, and he's going to have some hard talks. All right, so let's see what we can glean from this. 2 Kings chapter 5, verse 1, it says, the king of Aram, that's this enemy neighboring nation, had great admiration for Naaman. Naaman was the commander of his army, and because the Lord had given Aram great victories through this guy, Naaman. So he's like a really high up guy in this enemy nation. But it's interesting, it says that God gave them victories. That's something interesting to think about. God isn't just the God of Israel, he's the God of the whole world. Just fascinating to think about. But though Naaman was a mighty warrior, he suffered from leprosy. Major bummer. He had a huge potential, but he had a fatal flaw, right? A lot of potential, a lot of success, a lot of talent, but he had a fatal flaw that he needed to work out. How many of you guys know somebody that has a lot of talent, a lot of potential, but has some serious flaws? Anybody? Yeah, raise your hand if you have serious potential, but also have flaws, right? I have potential, I have flaws, okay? Some of you guys are not raising your hands. Either you don't think you have potential, or you don't think you have flaws. Both of those are not true, okay? You have potential, you have flaws, all right? Here we go. I didn't think I'd have to really preach on that part. Maybe we should just pause there. Verse 2, at this time, Aramean raiders had invaded the land of Israel. See, their constant skirmishes. And among their captives was a young girl who had been given to Naaman's wife as a maid. So this is a girl from Israel, a Hebrew girl who becomes a servant of Naaman's wife. And one day, the girl said to her mistress, I wish my master would go to see the prophet in Samaria, which is in Israel. Now we'll find this out, but she's talking about the prophet Elisha, who was one of the most powerful Old Testament prophets, seen the most insane miracles, crazy things. So she's talking about that guy. She knows of this guy is in Israel. And she says, I wish you would go see him because he would heal Naaman of his leprosy. Now, to me, there's a lot of heroes in this story. To me, this little girl is the hero of the whole story. Like, she had a lot of reasons not to say anything. You know what I'm talking about? Like, she had a lot of reasons. She could have just kept silent. You know, maybe there's, power dynamics. Like, oh, it's not my place. He's my boss. It's not my place, you know? Or really, in this culture, he's my boss's boss, you know? There's some layers there. Maybe she was feeling a little vengeful. She had been stolen from a land, in a war. She's like, man, that's not fair. That's unjust. Well, this will show you. I'm going to keep silent. You're going to die of leprosy, right? She doesn't say that. I think this is fascinating. She had a lot of reasons not to say anything. Maybe she could have been like, well, I don't really know him that well. It's not my place. I don't have the bridge of trust quite built yet with him. But she does. She says something. And I think this is amazing because think about what motivated her to have a tough talk, you might say, to have this hard talk. Why would she inject herself for Naaman's benefit. One, she had a love for him. She had a concern for him. And she saw that she could help him have a better future. You see that? So it wasn't just, hey, I need to get some stuff off my chest. I need to vent a little bit at you. It was like, hey, I see that your life could be better. Your life is missing something, and so I want to say something about that. And then also, she knew the power of God. She knew what the power of God could accomplish. Man, I think those are some serious keys to having tough talks, to having hard conversations. Is one, it's not me getting the beef off my chest or letting you know how I really feel about you. It's, I care about you. I care about you having a better future, but I also know what the power of God can accomplish. Y'all see what I'm saying? So it goes on. So Naaman tells the king, he hears what the girl has to say. Wow, there's this guy in Israel who can heal me. So he goes to the king, and he tells the king what the young girl from Israel had said, which I think this is fascinating. How many of y'all know when you know how serious your need is, you will take input from anywhere you can? Think about this. He goes, just play this in your head. This powerful guy goes to the king, another more powerful guy, and he goes, hey, I heard there's this guy in Israel, the nation we just defeated, who can heal me. Great, cool, where'd you get that idea? Servant girl? Yeah, the king's like, I have some questions. Like, why do you care what she has to say? We just defeated them, there's all these things, but he knows how big his need is. So he's like, hey, I don't care where it comes from. I don't care, maybe she didn't say it right, but I need the input. Y'all see the parallel there? Come on. So the king says, okay, go visit the prophet. I will send a letter of introduction for you to take to the king of Israel. So Naaman started out carrying his gifts, 750 pounds of silver, 150 pounds of gold. And I was just curious. I looked this up. This is about $5.5 million in today's money, and 10 sets of clothing. I'm assuming that would be kind of Gucci level, so that's probably another like 10 to 20 grand, of clothing. So he comes with these gifts. The letter to the king of Israel said, with this letter, I present my servant Naaman. I want you to heal him of his leprosy. And I just love, this is hilarious. Can you imagine getting just a letter? Hey, here's my friend. I want you to heal him. And you're like, come again? And the king of Israel feels about that way. And he says this, when he read the letter, he tore his clothes in dismay and said, am I God that I can give life and take it away? Why is this man asking me to heal someone with leprosy? I can see that he is just trying to pick a fight with me. Now, there's a little bit of backstory. The king of Israel didn't really have any fear of the Lord, was not really serving the Lord. He had been just born into this role. And his father had been pretty evil, one of the more evil kings of Israel. He wasn't quite as evil, but still wasn't really serving the Lord. And so here, this is ironic, the difference between the servant girl's response and the king's response. Isn't it interesting? The servant girl has this real humble, simple faith. There's someone in Israel who can heal you. I know the power of God. The king of Israel is very aware of who Elisha is, as we'll find out, but it never crosses his mind. Wow, maybe this isn't really directed toward me. Maybe there's this guy who really has, this deep well with the Lord who can heal her. He has just no idea. Here's the point I want to make about this specific character. He looked like a man of God, but he was not a man of God. He looked the part, but he didn't really have anything to offer. He benefited. He's the king of Israel. He's representing the people of God. He looks like the people of God. But when it comes down to really solving a problem, he has no faith to tap into. So he's like a well with no water in it. You feel like, oh my gosh, a well, yes, you drop the bucket down and it comes up dry. You're like, you leave disappointed. That's the kind of how this guy was. He looked the part, but he had nothing to tap into. And he was uncomfortable or offended, really, because he had no faith. He had no faith. Think about the number of times where we get offended, maybe at a young person who's really zealous, they're on fire for God, and they want to go hard after God, and we're just like, man, they're legalistic. They're just legalistic. You're like, no, they're hungry for God. They want as much, they're serious, but it's like, because I'm lukewarm, I'm offended by real faith. You see what I'm saying? Come on, don't be like this king right here. Don't look the part and not have anything to offer. Now, the story goes on. But when Elisha, the man of God, heard that the king of Israel had torn his clothes in dismay, he sent this message to him. Why are you so upset? Send Naaman to me, and he will learn that there is a true prophet here in Israel. I just love this. Have you guys ever seen the movie Tombstone? That is such a great movie. If you haven't seen this movie, you should go watch it later today. It's kind of old school, but Doc Holliday, Val Kilmer, he was robbed of an Oscar this year. He has the best line in the movie is there's this bad guy trying to start a fight. But because Val Kilmer is so good at gunfighting and stuff, he doesn't even notice that this guy's a threat. And there's a scene in the movie where he's like talking to his buddies and he's like, oh, why Johnny, I forgot you were there. And then he's just like, you may go now. And Johnny's like, what? Okay. And he just leaves. It's so funny. It's just like such a, and that's an alpha move right there. And that's kind of how Elisha is. He's like, why are you upset? Just send it to me. I'm going to show him that there's really someone who knows what they're doing here. Right? So Naaman goes with his horses and chariots, waits at the door of Elisha's house. But Elisha sent a messenger out to him with this message. Go and wash yourself 7 times in the Jordan River. Then your skin will be restored, and you will be healed of your leprosy. But Naaman became angry and stalked away. He said, I thought he would certainly come out to meet me. He said, I expected him to wave his hand over the leprosy and to call on the name of the Lord his God and heal me. Aren't the rivers of Damascus, the Abana, and the Parfar better than any of the rivers of Israel? Why shouldn't I wash in them and be healed? So Naaman turned and went away in a rage. Now remember, Naaman's a powerful guy, important guy. He's very aware of how important he is. Right? So he comes, he expects this other important man to come and validate him. Elisha, he does not care at all. This is another Val Kilmer move, like, you may go now, And it's amazing because here I'm so convicted and inspired by Elisha in this moment, because how many times do you and I avoid doing or saying something because we're afraid the other person might be uncomfortable? Right? Elisha does not care at all that Naaman is slightly discomforted or offended by what he's doing. He could have easily, well, while he traveled all this way, I really should go out to meet him. And he's like, I don't care. That's just not what needs to happen here. What needs to happen is I need to have my servant go talk to him. And Naaman's very uncomfortable. He's offended. Elisha's, I think he slept very well that night. Didn't bother him. And I find that so convicting for me personally. Like, how many times am I shying away from certain topics or certain statements or things that I feel like really God is inviting me to partake in this kind of a conversation, but I'm shying away because, I don't want them to feel uncomfortable. Which really it's not about them being uncomfortable, it's about me being uncomfortable with losing their approval. Y'all feel me? But Elisha, he said, I'm not playing that mind game. I'm going to do what God told me to do, regardless of whoever might be uncomfortable or offended with this situation. Man, if you and I could live like that, that would be amazing. But his officers tried to reason with him. Remember, Naaman's upset. He wants to go home. He's like, forget this guy. But his officers tried to reason with him and said, Sir, if the prophet had told you to do something very difficult, wouldn't you have done it? So you should certainly obey him when he says simply, go and wash and be cured. Again, here you have the underlings going to bat for Naaman. First the servant girl. Now you have the officers like, dude, what are you doing? Like, this is so easy. You have this fatal flaw that's going to kill you. This is not that hard. Just take what he's saying. I know you're offended, but hear what he's saying. Just do what he's saying. It's not that hard. And this is absolutely amazing, because it turns out that leprosy was not actually Naaman's fatal flaw. You know what it was? Pride. Pride. And we like to call this a blind spot. We call this a blind spot. You see, Naaman simply wanted to use God to change his circumstances. Hey, if you could just really make this this circumstantial issue go away, that would be great. Then I can take over from here. But God is after something much deeper than changing his circumstances, right? Even serious circumstances like a health challenge. God will do things like that, but God is after something much deeper. He wants to change you from the inside out, from your heart out, whether it's pride, lust, greed, selfishness, whatever the thing is. God is after something much deeper than changing just your circumstances. And I love that his underlings helped him identify a blind spot. They stepped in, they had a hard talk with him, didn't they? They said, hey, I know you're angry. They could have easily been, man, he's angry. This is not a good time to talk to him. Like, he's going to get upset with us. Maybe he might fire us. But they said, no, they had a concern for him and for his future. And they were maybe they weren't like following, Jesus or whatever, but they had an inkling of awareness of what God might do for him. And so he said, no. Hey, wait. Let's not be too hasty. Let's think about this a little bit. And they identify a blind spot in him, don't they? Now, a blind spot, I want to just pause for a second. Blind spots are fatal flaws that every single one of us have. Okay? I have blind spots. You have blind spots. Your spouse is not the only one with blind spots. Okay? College students, your roommates are not the only ones with blind spots. Everyone raise your hand. I have blind spots. Say it with me. I have blind spots, okay? Some of you didn't say it loud enough. You don't believe me. What is a blind spot? A blind spot is a behavior, a belief, or a thought pattern that limits the potential of your life. Like maybe you could change the world. Well, this blind spot's really going to ring that in. Like you're really not able to do all the things that God's called you to do because of this belief, thought pattern, or way of acting or whatever that is limiting you. But the problem is you can't see it. Point to someone who might be able to see it for you. Yes, the people around you, your family members, right? The people closest to you. That's the challenge of blind spots. You don't know they're there, but everyone else does. Everyone else knows you got blind spots, right? And here's the challenge is, how many of you guys have ever been to maybe start at a new office? You get a new job, or maybe you come to a new church or something like that, and you meet someone and they're like, man, they're really rough around the edges. Like, are they always like that? Like, man, that's they're hard to be around. And what does everyone say? Oh, that's just Jimmy. What does that mean? It means everyone sees their blind spot, but isn't willing to say anything about it. They've just resigned that person to his fate. Just like, well, you're just going to die like that. And you might take us all with you because we hate being around you. It's brutal. It's so brutal. And I love that these underlings, they don't do that. They don't do that. They say, we love you enough. We want your future to be better than it is now. And we know what God might do in your life, so we're not going to settle. We're not just going to be like, well, that's just Naaman. We're like, no. Hey, Naaman, listen, you got a blind spot here. We need to talk about it. You got some pride, man. And it's really hindering your ability to have a good life. And you're kind of making life hard for us right now, too. Man, what if you and I could live lives like that? What if you and I had the skill and the faith to embrace conversations like that? Man, that would be amazing. Now, the problem is, we don't know we need to change until someone else identifies our blind spots for us, which is pretty painful, isn't it? Like, how many of you are just like, I love it when other people identify my weaknesses for me. I just love it. Wow, we do have a few. Again, I will be avoiding you after church. But let me help you out, because let's be honest, negative feedback is really difficult, and no one likes it. Maybe a few of us do, but most of us don't like it. So here's two truths that every disciple of Jesus needs to know. You need to memorize. You need to write on your bathroom mirror. You need to embrace these every day. Two things you need to know. And these are two sides of one coin. Number one, there is nothing defensible in me. Everyone say, there is nothing defensible in me. What does that mean? So that means when someone gives you feedback, you don't need to defend yourself. You can just say, thank you, may I have another? right? Hey, I don't need to defend myself. I can take your feedback, even if you don't say it perfectly, even if you're kind of mean about it, even if you don't even have my best in mind. Maybe you hate my guts, but if there's anything that I can glean from that for my benefit, thank you very much. Now, why can we do that? Because number 2, I am accepted in the beloved. Everybody said, I am accepted in the beloved. What is the beloved? The beloved is the church, the body of Christ, the community of God. If you are a follower of Jesus, your identity and value is secure in God. You are accepted here. There's nothing you can do to be rejected from God if you are in Christ, which means feedback from other people does not change your value or standing before God. Feedback from other people, they're like, man, you're kind of a jerk, you know? Hey, well, I'm still a son of God. It doesn't change. I'm accepted in the body of Christ. I'm accepted here. My identity is secure. My value is secure. It doesn't, I don't need to go, take on whatever coping mechanism I want to, because I'm accepted here. I'm not going to spiral, right? And if you have both of these in mind, I'm accepted, well, then I can take feedback graciously because you're not attacking me as a person. You're trying to help me out. You're trying to give me some sort of feedback to help me grow. Man, now it's interesting is sometimes we take on one or the other, but not both, and that's not a good place to be. If you're like, I'm accepted, but I don't take feedback, right? That's called narcissism. You're like, it's kind of the movement of the day, isn't it? Where it's like, I'm amazing and no one can tell me anything and I'm just cutting toxic people out of my life. And it's like, friend, maybe you're the toxic person. You're maybe obsessed with yourself much. Come on, you know? And so you don't want to believe one or you need both. You need both. I'm accepted in the beloved. I'm here, man, but I don't need to defend myself. Because I don't need to prove it. I don't need to prove myself. Man, God did it for me. I'm just receiving what God's doing for me. I don't need to prove to you how amazing I am. You know, if I make a mistake on this message and you're like, man, you know what, you could have done that better. Well, you know what? I wasn't here proving myself anyways. I'm just trying to be faithful to God. I'm just receiving what God's done for me. I'm trying to pass it on. Same thing for you. It's like, man, you don't have anything to prove. You're accepted in the beloved. And I don't have anything to defend. Man, how much would that change our lives? That'd be a daily game changer for us. John Ortberg, who's just a fantastic pastor and writer, he says that trying to grow spiritually without hearing the truth about yourself from somebody else is like trying to do brain surgery on yourself without a mirror. You're just guessing. Man, that's bad news right there. We need the feedback that other people can give us. We need it. And I know it hurts. I know it's not comfortable. It's not fun, but we still need it. Just because it's uncomfortable doesn't mean it's not from God. Okay? Now, let's move on. The story keeps going. Verse 14, it says, so Naaman, he listens to the feedback of his underlings. He humbles himself. And it says he went down to the Jordan River, dipped himself 7 times as the man of God had instructed him, and his skin became as healthy as the skin of a young child, and he was healed. Then Naaman and his entire party went back to find the man of God. They stood before him, and Naaman said, now I know that there is no God in all the world except in Israel. So please accept a gift from your servant. But Elisha replied, as surely as the Lord lives, whom I serve, I will not accept any gifts. And though Naaman urged him to take the gift, Elijah refused. It's $5 to $6 million. You know, he's like, no, this is integrity. This guy's inspiring. Then Naaman says, all right, but please allow me to load 2 of my mules with earth from this place, and I will take it back home with me. From now on, I will never again offer burnt offerings or sacrifices to any other God except the Lord. That's amazing. Not only is he healed on the outside, he's healed on the inside. It's incredible. However, may the Lord pardon me in this one thing. When my master the king goes into the temple of the god Rimmon to worship there and leans on my arm, May the Lord pardon me when I bow to. Go in peace, Elijah said. So Naaman started home again. Honestly, I would love to take another message just from that part. I mean, it's just incredible. Elisha could have been very uncomfortable with that. Like, wait, no. But he says, hey, you know what? I'm going to have grace toward you. You have a heart toward God. You've given your allegiance to God. And man, there's so much about that we don't have time to get into. But anyway, he's healed on the outside, healed on the inside. But let's think about this. How is Naaman healed? Think about that. How is Naaman healed? He's healed, obviously, through the power of God. The power of God meets him when he humbles himself and he does what God was asking him to do, right? But if that's all you get from this story, it's easy to miss a very critical piece and just go out like, how can I, in my own life, individually, apart from other people, meet the power of God in my life without other people? Well, that's not really what it took for him to encounter the power of God, is it? It took a few people willing to have hard conversations with him in order for him to meet and encounter the power of God, right? Started with a servant girl. And then it went to Elisha, willing to make him uncomfortable, willing to offend him. And then it went to his officers, willing to identify a blind spot, willing to push him back toward what God was trying to do in his life, right? Think about, what if Naaman had not listened to the servant girl in the first place? Boop, dead. Dead. What if he listened to the servant girl, but then Elisha was just too much? He says, man, I got the feedback from her, but this is too much. And he just goes home. Dead. What if he makes it past that, but doesn't listen to his officers? Dead. He's dead. But he finally is willing, he humbles himself to hear the input he needs to take. Maybe it's uncomfortable, maybe it wasn't worded correctly, but he humbles himself because he knows it's what he needs. Now put yourself on the other side of the coin. What if the girl had never said anything? What if the girl was like, man, it's not my place. I don't know you well enough. You're my boss. This isn't, the perfect time and place. Dead. What if Elisha wasn't willing for him to be offended? Dead. And what if the officers were like, man, this is our boss. He's kind of angry. I don't know. Let's just wait. Let's wait for the next one. Maybe he'll get leprosy again. Then we can say it next time. Dead. And it took 3 hard conversations to unlock this man's destiny. 3 conversations. Notice it's not about the people getting stuff off their chest at him and just letting him have it. It's about unlocking his destiny. It's about him not dying and finding life and flourishing. And what was a vital part of it? Hard conversations. Hard conversations, because they loved him enough and they knew the power of God. They were willing, their faith pushed them into an uncomfortable situation where they were willing to say something on his behalf. You see what I'm saying here? I wonder where God is inviting you to do something like that as well. And I find this fascinating, and I'm preaching to myself here, honestly. I'm working this out in my own life as well. So let's all figure this out together, because, when we say to God, I'm just not comfortable, that's just not my place. I don't have that gift. Then you're like, wait a second. You're saying that you're too uncomfortable to help this person find a breakthrough in their life? You're too uncomfortable? You value your own comfort more than this person finding life and blessing? Wait, you value your own feelings more than this person getting free from slavery? Come on, what are we talking about here? You see what I'm saying? And I wonder, if you're avoiding conflict or a difficult conversation, it might be because either you don't care enough about the person, or you don't really know what the power of God can accomplish, right? It's all about me. It's me preserving me. It has nothing, it's selfish. It's prideful. It has nothing to do with, of course I love the person. Yeah, I love God. Of course I'm at church. But it's if I'm not willing to have a hard conversation, it might be because I really don't love them the way I think I do. Or I really don't know what the power of God can accomplish like I think I do. And so we need to ask God. Fear is thinking about a future without God in it. That's what fear is. It's imagining a future where God doesn't exist. And so many times we're afraid of these things because we're counting the cost, the negative things of what it'll cost us. Well, what if they reject me? And what if this? And what if that? And what if they hate me? And all this. Well, hey, where's your faith at? I mean, what if the exact opposite happens? What if God shows up? What if God meets the person and their life totally changes? Come on, let's be people of faith, not of fear. Let's be people of faith. It's amazing. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. You're thinking, but I'm just not good at having hard conversations. I'm an introvert. I don't have what it takes. It's not in my personality. And I want to tell you this. I have a graph here, a little scale I want to show you. This is how most of us think about hard conversations. We think that you are either dominant or aggressive or overbearing and therefore good at having hard conversations. It's just hardwired into your personality. Or we think you're passive or easygoing or timid and you're just not part of your personality. You'll never be good at having hard conversations, right? And we just think, well, wherever you're born, that's just kind of where you're going to be. My friend, that is not how it is at all. Let's show the next graph. It's more of a scale of, are you bad at having hard conversations or are you good? Have you developed the skill of having hard conversations? Let me tell you, whether you're a strong personality or a more timid personality, we all start out bad. We all start out bad at having hard conversations. Maybe you're a strong personality, but you're too aggressive. You grind people into dust, right? And it seems like you're good because all of us are afraid to even have them. But really, you're just like killing people in your wake, just destroying lives. So we all start out bad, and we need to develop the skill because difficult conversation isn't a personality trait. It's a skill to be developed. And so the question is not, well, do I have the personality, or am I good at this, or am I not good at this? It's where is my skill? Where is my skill? Am I developing the skill at having difficult conversations? Because when you lean away, when you avoid conflict, your skill disappears. When you lean in, even if it's messy and it's not really perfect and you have to ask for forgiveness, your skill increases. And so are you developing the skill? Are you developing the skill? There's a researcher named Carol Dweck you might be familiar with who talks about the difference between a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. And she talks about a growth mindset is this belief that my abilities are not set in stone, but with hard work, I can develop my abilities and even certain personality traits. And she talks about the power of yet. She says that maybe you're not good at having hard conversations yet, but you might be. You could figure it out. If you work hard, it might come to you. And that thing is amazing. When you embrace this, failure itself becomes an integral part of the growth process. It means you don't need as much courage as you think you do, because even if you fail, it's an opportunity to learn and get better. Are you developing the skill? Now, I just want to get personal. Let's close here for a second. And I want us to think about your own life. Think about your potential, right? The future, you want to have an impact. You want your life to matter. You want to change the world. We all do. That's good. You should. But what if you had a fatal flaw that really, it took your potential down to about 50%? What if you had a fatal flaw? The only problem is you didn't know you had it. And the only way you could really figure it out and change that to get from 50 to 100% on, your life impact was for someone else to tell you about it. Would you want to know? Would you want to know? Because you're the one who benefits ultimately. You're the one who benefits, right? It takes your life potential from 50 to 100%. I would hope that we would all want to know. Now think about on the other side of the coin. If you had a loved one, someone you really cared about, and they had a fatal flaw, but they only could figure it out, and their life impact would totally exponentially change, but only if you were willing to say something, would you say something? I would hope so. It's like, man, I love this person. I want them to get the most out of life. And so here's my application. One, what difficult conversation are you avoiding? Maybe in your family, in your marriage. Are you guys just roommates? You know, just, hey, it's good weather out there today. Nice. Cool. You taking the kids to soccer? Yeah, cool. Cool. What time you get home from work? 5. Nice. What's for dinner? Nice. You know? It's like, good talk, you know? Like, are you avoiding something? And it's just, man, this is, Dennis Peacock says that your relationship, the depth of your relationship is limited by the things you're not willing to talk about. Are you avoiding any sort of hard conversation in your marriage, in your family, with your kids, with your friends? Hello, people here in the church, we're all human. We have stuff to work out. That's what part of the church is working stuff out. What about at your job? Is there a boss, a coworker, an employee that maybe you're like, it's not my place, I'm too uncomfortable, I don't know them well enough yet. Hey, do you love them enough? Do you know what the power of God can accomplish in their life? So where are you avoiding? And then is there someone else around you that you have the opportunity to give input to that you're avoiding that as well? So that's too uncomfortable. And I just want to challenge you. One is, what would it look like this week to take a risk and to do that? And if you are willing to embrace the courage that it takes to do that, I want encouragement. One is, before you just jump right in and storm the gates, just pray. Pray, just like the servant girl, just like Elisha, and just like the officers. Pray, God, increase my love for this person. Increase my love for this person and my vision of what their life could be. Right? They're not just a thorn in my side. They're a person made in the image of God. They have a destiny on their life. And I might be super mad at them right now, but God, help me to see what their life really could be. Help me to have love that you have for them. And then, God, increase my understanding of what your power could accomplish in this person's life. Pray about that. God, really come to terms with that. And then dive off the diving board right into the deep end. Because remember, the goal isn't perfection. The goal is growing your skill. Growing your skill. Let me pray for us. God, thank you so much for everybody here. God, I thank you for the roughly 150 avoided conversations that are going to be had this week. God, I thank you for the courage that you are increasing in our hearts right now. In this moment, you are increasing faith. You are increasing our expectation. You're giving us the courage to embrace the things of God, that the things of God don't guarantee just a safe, comfortable life, but it's actually the uncomfortable things that help us grow and become more of who God has made us to be. And actually, it's the uncomfortable things that help us really walk into our destiny in God. God, give us the faith, give us the courage to step into these things. God, help us to be like each of these characters in this Bible story, Lord, who are real people. They had real fears to overcome. Help us to be like the servant girl, like Elisha, like the officers, who they see someone with a blind spot and they're willing, their faith actually causes them to say something. And then help us to be like Naaman in the end, who humbles himself, who hears the feedback he's getting and humbles himself and says, God, I need what these people are telling me. I need the feedback these people are giving me. God, help us to know these two truths deeply in our hearts and to live these things out, that I am accepted in the beloved. My standing is secure and there is nothing defensible in me. I can take feedback graciously. God, help us to master this. God, I thank you for your kindness and gentleness with us as we figure this out, because it'll be messy, but we're going to grow. It might be messy, but I'm going to grow. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Come on. Hey, God bless you guys. God bless you guys. I know the married people, you're like, right when we get in the car, I'm about to tell you all the things I've been avoiding for the last 10 years. Hey, maybe take it slow. Maybe go get some lunch in your body and take a nap. and then maybe have one instead of like all 150, okay? All right, God bless you guys. Have a great week.